Let's now speak to John Tully, who's Vice Chair of the Met Federation. Good afternoon to you, John. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
First question has got to be the reaction to slightly different words, certainly warmer words coming from the coalition.
Well, I take a different view, actually. I think the Home Secretary's been rather disingenuous in what she said to my colleagues. The people I represent are the people who work on the front line of policing, throughout policing as well, because the back office can't be forgotten. But those officers who put themselves on the line when the disturbances kicked off, put themselves in harm's way for the people of London, they should be commended for that, and quite rightly so. The Home Secretary's done that. However, in the same breath, she continues to maintain that she's going to introduce her 20% cuts, which have now materialised down to 6%, which I think is a bit of smoke and mirrors and political spin. In London, we're going to lose 20% of our budgets, which equates to 2,000 police officers.
But she did say that the results of what we saw on the streets of London made their reorganisations more urgent than ever, were her words. And she also said that this is about budget cuts. It's not about cutting the police's ability to react.
Well, I think the two are inextricably linked, because if we have 2,000 less police officers by way of budget cuts, my members are telling me now that because of the other cuts and restrictions to their pay and conditions that are being considered at the moment through the Police Negotiating Board, they're going to be considerably worse off. Some of them up to £3,500 or £4,000 worse off a year, and they're considering their position. Should they actually stay in the police service because they can't afford to pay the mortgage at the end of the month?
So morale is low despite what we've seen. So clearly police are being professional, but their morale deep down is pretty suspect at the moment.
I think in 26 years service that I've had, I've never seen or felt morale as low as it is now. But nevertheless, it's a vocation for the great majority of officers, and they, to their credit, turned out and did the job and did it well.
Do officers have hope that were the Labour Party to have been elected 2 years ago, life would have been very different? Because the Conservatives are very clear that this is pretty similar to what the Labour Party would have had to do, and they only guaranteed themselves the current level of funding for 3 years, till 2013, which is basically what these guys are doing.
I don't really think there would have been a lot of difference whoever was in power.
So your message to the current people who are in power, the coalition, is 20% no. What would you accept?
I think if you look back, the Inspectorate of Police said that they could sustain a level of service with no more than 12% cuts. Obviously, the police service has to bear its part of the burden, as it were, around the economic situation we're in. But we just feel that we're being singled out for that little bit too much. It's not a fair burden. There's extra additional burdens that have been put on us, which we can't cope with at the moment.
Just lastly, one of the things I want to ask listeners this afternoon, I'd like to get your reaction first to this query about possible curfews in limited areas. Firstly, do you think there is a risk that this could be perceived by many people, and it's all about policing by consent, a bit of an intrusion into our rights? And is it something the police would even want to manage? Because for many police, this is about aggravation, and it might be this is more aggravation.
I think that's pretty much right, because we've got a raft of legislation already around the various powers that we have, stop and search and various other powers.
You've got disbursement, haven't you?
Absolutely, yes. Under the Public Order Act and the Terrorist Act, Section 60 of various other acts that we can use in specific areas. So to give us additional powers, I'd say aren't necessary, because we've asked consistently for a review into the criminal justice system across the board, where if we continually put people before the courts, and to our regret they end up back on the streets very, very quickly, and it's a vicious circle. So I think an effort needs to be put into that side of things, where substantial sentences are passed out and we stop these criminals coming back onto the street so quickly.
We're going to have to leave it there. Many thanks for joining us live on the programme this afternoon.
Thank you.